y'all? Andrew with Free Tours by Foot in New Orleans. Today we're going to induct you into a new New Orleans tradition. It is Mardi Gras weekend, and lots of us across town right now are doing this walk or bike or car trip around town where we are looking at house floats. These are the substitute for how Mardi Gras would normally happen this year to adapt to the COVID times. So we've actually got all across the city, 3,000 odd houses doing stuff like this at different levels of production value. And a lot of times there's a little taste of what normally things would be like this time of the year. So a lot of them are using these cutouts of the people who would be all along the parade route, catching beads, wearing their costumes, etc. And this yard too even has a reference to something else we'd normally have, the ladder over here with the little seat on top. Normally that is where you put your kids so that they can be high up enough to catch some stuff and to see everything well, although this one has cup holders, so kids of all ages, maybe. Anyway, James on camera and I are just like walking around and checking this stuff out for the first time. So we're gonna be seeing things we haven't seen before, some that we have. Gonna be a little less of a historic tour than we sometimes do. Maybe these things will render me speechless. We like sports in New Orleans, y'all, I'm told. And here we have an interesting combination of teams. We have the LSU Tigers, fairly celebrated. And then we have the Newman, I don't know the name of this team because they're a local high school and I don't know that they're terribly celebrated, but you can tell where somebody's loyalties lie. We have on that house back there, y'all, a lot of kind of suggestions of springtime, and another one that we're going to come up and see will be very much that flavor too. It is, I guess, close to technically spring right now, and a lot of times this time of the year things are starting to flower and bud out. If there was one Mardi Gras to miss out on parading because of weather, this is the one. I'm dressed for the weather right now versus dressed for the holiday, as I was when we shot our last Mardi Gras video. Had a sequin jacket that really suggested the times, but it's a bit cold today, and we even have the possibility of snow going from Monday night into Mardi Gras morning. So here's another one, what nature is not giving us right now. We can create artificially. And the sign in front of this, y'all, says Kern Studios. They're one of the professional float producing outfits, and they are the biggest ones. So the really high production value stuff like this, that's going to tend to be from them. And if you've seen some Mardi Gras parades before, there's this kind of airbrush look about this stuff that is very signature them. So we'll see a lot of Kern's work, especially right here on St. Charles Avenue. They're doing a lot of the bigger mansions where folks have a budget to produce their house. But we're also known for DIYing our holidays. And so right along here, you get a house that's actually famous for their Halloween decorations. So normally these guys are gonna have a yard completely full of skeletons. It's more of our children's seats. And y'all know, throwing beads, normally a big part of our thing. And so, I don't know if this has been a terribly successful formula so far, but usually bead recycling is done through this organization called NOLA. And so anyone who ends up with beads to spare, it's gonna be less of a problem this year than usually. Here's a place to put them. So we have one mannequin in this yard versus the few dozen that you'd normally see during Halloween. These guys, as far as I can tell, they spend their year thinking of every bad death pun that they can, and then dressing up a skeleton around it. So there's like Bone Again, for example, then you'll have a skeleton dressed as a preacher. We love bad puns. It's a really big piece of our sense of humor. And this place goes to the nines on that, on Halloween normally, but Mardi Gras, very much into that too. So more on the Mardi Gras sense of humor soon. Ha! And these are here all year long, but they too are costumed for the season. So we pass by the rest of their stuff, and then we've got another one across the street. So we'll head over there. And any of y'all who have seen our first Mardi Gras video, you'll recognize this guy. Excuse us. Oh, nice, y'all. So we have here, this is another Kern project, but they also have a flag for the Krewe of Iris. So this is one of the float parades. And in the middle of their flags up there is a flag for the Krewe of Red Beans. And they've been producing some of these houses by which they're hiring on Mardi Gras artists who are out of work. And some of those are gonna go through Kern, some of them are gonna go through other places. So lots of those across town too. We'll have a little bit of that happening. In terms of the whole terrible sense of humor thing, y'all, favorite example of that would be, there's a parade called Krewe de Vaux, which is usually one of the first ones of the season. And they, Vaux is V-I-E-U-X, like old in French. And it's named for the Vaux Carré, which is an older name for the French Quarter. And they roll through the French Quarter, which most parades don't. If you think of Mardi Gras as like raunchy, that's the parade you're thinking of, but they're like cleverly raunchy. So they're also always gonna comment on the times, and their theme this year had to be COVID related. So their theme for 2021 is Krewe de Vaux has no taste. Wait for it, you got it. If you didn't get it, think about COVID symptoms. Anyway, they have done house float stuff for their parade entirely this year and decorated places with these, what they called art installations. A little bit of a stretch of the term, but they did some temporary ones. And they've also added, y'all know little free libraries? The little boxes in front of houses that have books. You can take one, you can leave one. They've been doing those. They've had tasteless libraries all across town with like labeled shelves for like friction and non-friction. We're trying to keep this as PG rated as possible, but look up some Krewe de Vaux stuff if you want to get a little deeper into the other ratings for that material. Blaine Kern again, y'all. This is this is kind of them doing their absolute best. They don't just make Mardi Gras floats, actually. These guys also they've done like props and figures and all kinds of ornamentation for Universal Studios and for Disney World. So for fabricating this kind of stuff that you just need one of ever, that's really their specialty. So there's a good chance, even if you've never seen a Mardi Gras parade, that you've seen something Blaine Kern has made. They're part of like ad campaigns, all kinds of stuff. And we got one more of them here. And this one, I'm gonna guess this is a Midsummer Night's Dream theme, because we've got a man with a donkey head and a female person. So looking at Puck and Titania maybe, but also like plenty of the time. Mardi Gras parades are always supposed to have a theme, but sometimes it's just like pick 12 or 20 random figures and find the commonality between them. So, oh, this is Beauty and the Beast. They've got the covered rose. And the Beast is just a donkey this time. You know, the Disney interpretation doesn't have to be the definitive interpretation. So, good job to anybody who caught that before I did. Anyway, we're gonna jump a little bit ahead. We'll see a few others further along St. Charles, so we'll be right back. All right, y'all, we're back to St. Charles. It's getting a little further in the morning. The crowds are turning out a bit more. This is one of the ones that a lot of people want to stop and see. We are looking at a zoo concept, or circus concept actually this time around, but it being where it is in town, I think makes most of us think of the zoo. This part of town is where the Audubon Zoo, our one for New Orleans, is located. And we've got here again, Kern Studios doing their thing. This is lots of creatures that they would have had already. Circus concepts are evergreen in Mardi Gras parades. Y'all, if this season has you feeling like a caged animal, worth bearing in mind, we have lots and lots of other videos from New Orleans and other cities. So if you're wanting to stretch your metaphorical legs, if not your literal ones, or walk with these if you want to, you can look over in our channel's feed, and we have different tours of neighborhoods throughout New Orleans. We have tours in New York, DC, London, Berlin, lots and lots of places, so it doesn't have to end with this video. And y'all, like the name of the company suggests, the tours we do are pay what you will, so the whole concept is take a tour for free or for a small amount. At the end, you pay whatever you feel like it was worth. That is how I and all the rest of our guides make our living. And you can think of the videos that way if you want to. So we'll have links for dropping your guided tip in this and other videos. So thank you if you decide to do that. And thanks to everyone who has done that already. It's really a game changer right now, given how things are. So here we are at another one, y'all. So this one is New Orleans music themed. So this is New Orleans musician Dr. John, one of our local star losses of the last few years. And actually, when we went through Mardi Gras World for our general Mardi Gras 2021 video, we actually saw that piece built into a float at the time. So Blaine Kern, who did this one too, has been taking apart floats that they already have. They repurpose these things over and over and over again across the years. So they've been doing that again here. And they've got cutouts of lots of different New Orleans musicians. So you have Kermit Ruffins up there in the back. You have a band called the Radiators all around him, local rock band. We have the Meters on the other side that I can make out. We got Trombone Shorty. And here in the foreground, you got Mardi Gras Indians and Second Lines represented. So lots of the New Orleans music and kind of more generally New Orleans performance tradition represented. So past this, step from studio produced to very, very DIY. And this one, yes. Oh, this is just creme de la creme, y'all. Mwah. This is Mystic Krewe of Unicorns. So if you ever go to a Mardi Gras ball, like this is what it looks like to an outsider, I think. Is this kind of just uncanny freakishness. So you have the queen of the Mystic Krewe of Unicorns at the top of the stairs. And these are her maids, coming down. Oh my goodness, and these people did this all by themselves. Like they get these mannequins and they got just the most terrifying protruding veined unicorn masks. And they made a chandelier out of like hula hoops and spare fabric. So the DIY stuff can really outdo everything else. This is, I think they have teenage children, and this is what happens when like a young whimsical imagination gets a little bit of adult crafter production behind it. That is all I have to say. Y'all, we stepped further down St. Charles. I have recovered. My face still hurts, but we're stopping by one of the house floats that kind of gets in with what we do with parades in terms of a lot of the higher budget ones, the super cruise, will have a celebrity grand marshal. And there's always references to celebrities, floats designed after them, etc. But like, this is very much doing the kind of tribute that we would pay in person. And so Dolly Parton is the signature here. And while Saint Dolly is a concept that well pre-exists the current circumstances, her major support for COVID vaccine development is the subject matter here. So y'all can see her holding the syringe, and they have been really clever with their song titles and song lyric puns around the themes of the year. So my easy favorite being vaccine, 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 vaccine. I'm gonna get the giggles again. So anyway, more in the way of celebrities, just not local ones this time around like our musicians back there. We're gonna head a little further down to where the actual parade route portion of St. Charles Avenue is. So that's our next stop. We've moved down to the intersection of Napoleon and St. Charles. So this is St. Charles Avenue, this is Napoleon Avenue. And this is usually the spot where most Mardi Gras floats are gonna turn from one street to the other. And a few awesome things here, y'all. For one thing, a few of the parades that go by here. So there's the Krewe of Tux, which is a sort of toilet humor themed parade. And then there's the Krewe of Toth a little later on. And both of those tend to throw this stuff into the trees along the route. And so while beads are not being added to the trees, this is really, for those of us familiar with the neighborhood, really driving home the season. And they've also got here at this restaurant at the corner a house float that for me wins the prize for functionality. So you got over here a float made by Royal Artists, and it A, looks an awful lot like a house float, or like a float, like a typical Mardi Gras float, but B, is also one that people are legitimately occupying because this is a restaurant, and so folks are using it as an outdoor dining area. So you get to actually be inside of one of them, and for folks who have never been inside of a float, it's a little bit of discovery of the internal architecture, though plants and tables and heat lamps are not usually a part of the experience. So this too, it evokes what a lot of us think of as we get a little bit of structural discovery here. So normally these things are made out of styrofoam, and while it's nice to be able to see these things in fine detail, let people too close to anything and someone's going to destroy stuff. So one too many frozen mojitos at the restaurant here, and someone decided to get into some mischief. When you spend time on St. Charles or Napoleon during parades, a big part of what you see is people setting up parties, and these streets are getting used for that right now because outdoor distant parties are kind of more the thing. And so you're every now and then seeing people set up a grill or just some chairs and do a picnic together in these kind of shared public green spaces that we have. And normally during parade season, that's happening all up and down St. Charles Avenue, where you've just got tents where people claim their space for a week at a time. The streetcar doesn't roll because there's so much stuff in the way, and you just kind of camp out for as many days as your favorite parades are going, and that can be as much as 2 solid weeks. So while that stuff isn't happening this year, when we see these outdoor socially distant parties happening, it's like a little extra burst of Mardi Gras nostalgia for those of us who spend a lot of time here. Anyway, we're going to jump a little further down this street and show you one paying tribute to one of the parades that normally rolls this way. Some of the house floats, y'all, are getting into the themes of specific parades that are not happening. And in this case, we've got one designed after the Krewe of Muses. And this is actually put together by members of that very crew. So Krewe of Muses is an all-women's crew. They usually roll the Thursday before Mardi Gras. They're what we call a super crew, so it's a big, high production value parade. And they are themed after the 9 Muses in Greek mythology, the goddesses who inspire the arts. And you have some artsily inclined people in there. So what they did is they took 9 images made by Alphonse Mucha, the Czech artist who's kind of the poster child for Art Nouveau. And they adjusted those images a little bit. They had a graphic design person on board who altered skin tones on some of them, give it a little bit more of a representation of who all's in the crew. And then they had a print person who enlarged these images and made them where they could be hung outside for some days of rain and weather. And they also, the signature thing with Muses is they throw shoes. They hand out decorated shoes during their parade. And you got, in the middle, they made a chandelier out of high heels. So the DIY element of all this, even when you have a budget and you have people with the skills to do something more impressive, there's always going to be a homemade piece to even the really high production value stuff like this. One thing about this one too, y'all, though, is it looks great at night. We actually happened by this at night a few days ago when we shot our first Mardi Gras video, so again, check that out. And if you're going to be exploring, a lot of these are designed to be seen at night, and if you look at the Krewe of House Floats map, usually in each entry it says whether it's ideally viewed during the day, at night, or if it's good anytime. So plenty of them are, but the lighting on this one is just so happened that when we passed by, so James, who's on camera, knows his lights, and somehow one of the people who was orchestrating the construction of this read his mind and knew that and asked him for lighting advice for about half an hour before we left. So he had a little hand in making sure this looked good at night, because there was the main lighting artist who had a larger hand, so credit where it's due. But this is, if you're going to do an evening drive to see these things, this is one of the ones to linger by them. We're further down St. Charles now, y'all, along the Garden District portion, and I heard about this house that celebrates one of my favorite New Orleans people, local hero. If you ever watch our Bourbon Street video, you'll hear more about this person, but her name is Owens, and she is the longest lasting Bourbon Street showgirl, let's say, been there since the 1950s. And every year she hosts an Easter parade. So this house, this whole building, is commemorating her Easter celebration every year, which is like her and a bunch of her friends of a certain age all going out in like mule-drawn carriages through the French Quarter and tossing beads. And Easter in New Orleans, we have like her parade, we have a gay Easter parade full of drag queens and people who show up for Easter and just expect like church ladies in big hats don't even know what they're signing up for. So Easter in the French Quarter is a really, really good time. And of course, having the spring colors and flowers being thought of right now adds to our sense of things getting better and hope unfolding. Y'all, we came off St. Charles a little bit onto State Street to check out. They have a kind of united theme here. So the people who live on, I guess, this block of State Street have all gotten together around the concept of state of something or other. And these were much more like the homemade, low-budget ones, which is, it's for us who have seen a lot of Mardi Gras, this is all really lovable in its own way, and bad puns are the heart of Mardi Gras, the absolute essence, and I think this is about as good as it gets this year. So, oh, there's some layers to this. So you might recognize the reference. This is a version of the Georges Seurat painting, the creator of pointillism, called Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte. So this is a New Orleans version of that called Sunday Afternoon on the Fly, which is our kind of riverfront area for hanging out on Sunday afternoons when you're not working. And this is a version of that painting full of people from Mardi Gras dance crews and other Mardi Gras groups. So you have like the 610 Stompers, who are dudes in tracksuits who dance in Mardi Gras parades. You have a baby doll. These are women who do these like, doll costumes. You have an organ grinder. You have a member of one of our high school marching bands. There's the crew of the Rolling Elvi, which is Elvises on scooters. And they also have beads all up in the branches, a Muses shoe, a Zulu coconut. These are decorated throws that some of the parades give out. And then I think, oh yeah. So Pussyfooter, and we have a Barkus reference down here. This is the crew that costumes their dogs, and a dog on stilts, which may be a reference that I'm missing. And it's not Mardi Gras if you don't at least miss some of the jokes. So it's an inside joke for somebody at all times. I think this is supposed to be the person who lives here, but so Max Bernardi, who made this, is a float artist, like an independent float artist who was brought on for this, and mentioned about the Krewe of Red Beans that a lot of this is about hiring on people who would normally be doing this work professionally this time of the year, and obviously these folks can produce. So howdy. When you watch a float go by, you don't get to admire it in this much detail, and that's why I feel like this is, when I say we're initiating y'all into a new tradition, we haven't been able to give the art itself this level of attention in the past, and so I really think we're gonna be doing this in the future. And for Free Tours by Foot, our company, we could very potentially be doing walking Mardi Gras tours in the future, taking y'all when you visit by spots like this. So I hope that's what we're in for. At the very least, we've got this year, and if y'all want to see a bunch of other of these, we're gonna take you to some more. But you also can be looking on social media with tags like Krewe of House Floats, Hire a Mardi Gras Artist, and there's also Yardi Gras, Y-A-R-D-I. So any of those is going to get you lots more images. We've got several more still to come, though. Y'all, we've been talking about Mardi Gras as an exercise in the worst possible puns and just embracing it and loving it. So 2021, best place now to see. And I actually really love the compliment of this with Krewe. It's not rocket science. It's not. This full disclosure, is the work of cameraman James and his wife Helen, and I helped put it up. So we can appraise this from the inside. We've called this art, so we're going to treat it like art. This is a creation of Muon, very thin sheets of wood, painted with let's call it a pointillism technique, and cutouts of the very cats in the house. And so it's really cool when you're making these, pass by and react to it, because there's I think of this having been in parades, like there's something about seeing the wonder on other people's faces. It's something that you either you're doing or that you're helping create, and especially when it's lit up at night and people pass by and see both colors, it's super satisfying. So, an encouragement to y'all that if you are moved by this stuff, I mean, it doesn't have to be this season. We're going to do this again next year. There's already registration going on for 2022. Make something. I mean, these guys are theater artists, and so they've got some exposure to the mediums and some practice and painting and all that, but really, like, anybody who wants to give this a shot, like, you can do this. And I think it has really been delighting people in the far reaches of everywhere. These things are in Australia, they're in Europe, they're in like lots and lots of American cities and towns, and having a little bit of festivity on what would otherwise just be a Tuesday and of a fairly drab time in a lot of places. It can brighten people's experience of, you know, any place. It doesn't have to be here. So, Krewe of House Floats 2022. Think about it. And before Carnival of 2022 comes along, and before we get on to our next house float, there is another constructive thing you could be doing. Liking and commenting will help people find this video if you think that these are fun and worth other people seeing. And we always love to see in the comments what else you think we should be doing. So if this gives you ideas, if you know of stuff going on where you're from, or there's just favorite cities that you'd like to see, please let us know down below. And we're working with those comments right now to produce our next round of videos. So we'll have some viewer suggestions getting on this channel pretty soon. Y'all, we came way off St. Charles for this one, but worth it. This one is worthwhile on a couple of different fronts. So for one thing, this is the home of a local order of nuns, and we have on the front tribute to the founder of this order and the person who brought the order to the United States. I had to look up who these people were, and the order is called the Sisters of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, headquartered in Iowa. So their presence here, and they have a shelter for homeless mothers and their children nearby in the neighborhood that we're in right now. And in addition to honoring their own founders and leaders, they also have Ruby Bridges up here, who was one of the first 4 black girls to integrate New Orleans schools back in the 60s. And we also have Henriette DeLille, who was the founder of the first order of nuns that accepted black women in New Orleans in the 19th century. So the whole theme here is women of light, and the concept is in line with what these nuns do in the first place, but also with women sharing hope in the first place. And then they've also got their own little free library, which also contains food. So if you were to visit this one today, you would get some high fantasy, some advice about pregnancy, some self-help, or some canned potatoes. So resources for all kinds of people. And down the side, we've got lots more women that they included, and then this is maybe my favorite part. They have stickers that you can add where you can put the name of one of your own heroes on. So we just got to chat with the folks who put this up, and they were one of the groups that hired the Krewe of Red Beans, which has been running this Hire a Mardi Gras Artist program. And so they've been putting New Orleans float artists to work through this group fundraising effort, and they execute stuff that has this, you know, higher level of professionalism on top of the artistry of somebody who's been doing it for a long time. So they meet with the concept of the folks who have the home, and they will put up something like this. And when we filmed our last video, there were 5 of these that had been publicized, and now there's in the low 30s, I think. So there's a whole lot more to see now. And in addition to coming by and adding one of your own stickers on Mardi Gras Day, if you happen to be here, they are going to be throwing beads out their window, which they were cool enough to do for me. These are the only beads I have caught this year or expect that I will catch this year. So it makes a really welcome addition to the weekend for me. Y'all, earlier we kind of zoomed through what all this stuff is about, how it all relates to Mardi Gras traditions as a whole. If you want to understand that better, you can go check out that Mardi Gras video that we shot previously. You'll find it up here, probably down there. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for your time. See you soon.